Welcome to the greatest place on earth, my doghouse. I'm going to talk about comments and some other things that goes on here. The comments are them that I put out are gotten from the Jeremy Hals versus Lynnete Preston. And everybody's entitled to their opinions, and I've stated this on a few other podcasts I've done. And there's people out there that definitely disagree with me, but we're civil, and I talk to them and they talk back. They give their opinion and I give mine. That's great. I don't want somebody 100% of the time agreeing with me. That Because when you agree with somebody 100% of the time, the person saying it's not the fool, it's the person agreeing with the person that said it. And let's take, for example, the bad end of it. And I get very few criticisms because I mostly put out shorts. That's where my membership or my subscribers come from. The majority of them is on the shorts I put out, not the podcast. And anybody that thinks I'm here to make money off this, why would I be doing the shorts? Because that's almost next to impossible, but that's what I like doing. I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with my life. I'm on here because I want to be on here. Nobody's forcing me to be here, and nobody's forcing you to listen. But back to the podcast I put out about Jeremy and Lynnete. I got a lot of good positives from that. But one guy, or a couple of them, but one guy's out there, he kept saying, well, prove that they have an expert handwriting. I said, who it was. I said, Google it. And 3 or 4 times before he caught on, I wasn't telling him. And I know who it is because I went and looked. But I wouldn't tell him. To me, that's a person being lazy and don't want to go look. They want you to do it. And after they look, they'll disagree anyway. But if they want to know that bad, they go look. Nothing wrong with it. That's what they should do. Google it. You might not always get the right answer on Google, but they're the ones out there. And another thing this guy said, and I got to laugh at it. I really did this morning. It made my morning. Most people would have been upset with it, but it made my morning. He goes in on where the cameras were set. He thinks they're on Jeremy's property and not going over to her property. But he get a few examples like, Jeremy don't follow Lynnete around. That's give or here nor there, because sometimes you'll run into people, even though they have a protection order against you, and other times you do follow them. Otherwise, when you were in Ohio, why did a certain person, once John got out of jail, drove by? You guys who think you need all this great protection because you're not getting protected enough and you fear for your life and you do something like that, there's something wrong there. But this guy goes on, and then at the end he goes, if you don't have a legitimate argument, don't write me back and call me an idiot. But that's what was funny. I just wrote him back and say, who's the idiot? Whose channel is this? You can't tell me what I'm going to put on this channel. But he decided he had the right to tell me what I could and couldn't do. What a stupid fool. Funny, but stupid. But it made my morning, and I appreciated that. That's part of the problem here. Regardless of who you believe or don't believe, just look things up. Go with what people say in the fact that they can back it up. Go look, are they backing it up or are they just words? And this is just not on them, it's anyone. And, you're always going to get them out there that will always be negative. A good example of that on my shorts, most of the time it's positive. But when you say something really positive, you get people that will not like it. True fact. And that's exactly what happens. Once again, thumbs down works great for me too. But people, like I said, for the most part on that, were very respected of me, and I appreciate that. All of them didn't agree by any means, but they didn't go out on a limb and do what this one guy did this morning. What was funny about that is, if you disagree with me, that's fine. But if you're going to sit there and throw insults at me, well, I may or may not respond in kind. Because his insults were like an elementary or junior high kid. That's pretty much what they were. He was being lazy is what he was doing. He didn't want to do any work for himself. And like I said, if he would have done, he would have still disagreed. It's funny how people do that. Life kind of works that way. How many people you work around that you prove them right and they actually went and looked to make sure, but after they found out you were right, they still tried to disagree with you? And that's the way that is, You can't get away with that not happening in your life. It's going to happen. For the most part, YouTube's been good to me. I've been on here for quite a few years, but I never even posted nothing until about 5 months ago, maybe. And I've been impressed with the comments I get on my shorts. Here it's not bad either, but I don't do a lot of these like I do the shorts. But I appreciate everybody that listens, whether they agree or not. I know I don't agree with everybody on here, and there's channels I'll watch because I like them. Don't mean I 100% agree with everything. Even with Jeremy out there from Otter Creek in Ohio, I tell people I don't hate him because I don't know how to really hate. I disagree with his philosophies and what he is doing. 100% disagree with that. But I'll tell you what, if I were there, and I can't be that deceiving, I'm just not, but if I were, and I wanted content and notoriety and everything else, here's what I would have done. I would have found my neighbor, which did happen here. That neighbor, like some of the others around, is the weakest in the fact that both of them can come unhinged really, really quick. So and they don't have a lot of money. So if I'm wanting content and going after somebody, that's the person I'd go after. Because it would be an easy mark. Unfortunately, or fortunately for her, it hasn't turned out that way, and people's gotten behind her. But the idea of doing it is exactly 100% the way Jeremy did it to get that. Now, some of you go, well, he didn't do it for that reason. Whether he did it for that reason or not, only he knows that for sure. And I'm not accusing him of it, but what's happened is exactly how I would have done it if I was after more views, get on there, get money, and everything like that. I would have done that. Because it seems like they're the easiest target around there. So yeah, that ain't a stupid person that would do that. It may be an ignorant person, but not stupid. So either way, it worked out for him, whether it was intended or not. And the courts are going to decide that. And another thing, this guy, and this is what got me, he was insinuating that Lynette's lost cases left and right. And I told him, the one case was dropped, Lynnete dropped that case. There's still 3 going on at this moment. Now, I'm not the judge or jury. They will decide on this stuff. And it's not like taking her side or Jeremy's side. I'm just looking at what is out there. And like I said, I could see them being an easy mark because of their can be unhinged like they were. And people are still on this adoption thing. And there was a couple of ladies, they've checked in on the one that's supposed to be related, which are not by law. But she filed an emergency order. Well, they checked up on the address, and there was nothing there. And this has been checked up on and verified it was. So nobody say, no, it wasn't, no, it wasn't. Look. But that lady didn't live there. There's no house. There's nothing there. When they look farther into it, is that lady that was doing this has the same address as the person that gave up the child, which is interesting. Like I said, the courts decide on this stuff, but that come out. Whether you want to believe it or not, it did. And a lot of people on here, even some of the bigger channels I watch, sometimes get lazy and have their opinion and won't look at what's really going on. Mainly because somebody gets a lot of views from somebody else. That means a lot more views, more money for them if they're monetized, which they all are. At least the ones I listen to. Maybe some others aren't. And by the way, I talk the way the hell I want to talk. So anybody want to cry about it, go ahead. But anyways, getting back to my little off-road deals here and where I'm come from, that's what you'd say. The lady and has already proven that there is something wrong with that adoption and the fact that it's the biological, or the birth giver of the kid, I should say. They have no rights to that child. Now, I ain't saying when the child got older, go, I want to know my other mom, which is fine. That's her. At 18, she has that priority to do that. And if that's what she wants, then she should. But these other channels get on there, they don't want to look at everything like that. They will leave that out. Anything to do with this one creator, even if it's showing out, and it has been, they won't say anything because they don't want to lose subs and that. And I am not saying Jeremy's on the phone saying, you got to do this or else I'm going to pull this. I don't know that that happens, and I don't believe that happens. You can do it by not saying something, and which is an assumption, and you know what assuming does. But other things like that, some of these other channels, like I say, I'll watch them. I have my opinion of them. Some are not so good on this issue. But when you go out there and you're willing to sacrifice somebody, and this was on, I kind of mentioned it before on that other channel, sacrifice a child to get to the parent, that's wrong. And yes, this one guy, he calls himself Christian. I ain't going to question whether he believes he's a Christian or not. But everything he does, or not everything, good part of what he does is what a false prophet would do. No, I'm not calling him I'm not calling him a false prophet, but that's exactly what they would do. They would go down the exact same trail. And like I said, if I was wanting clicks and views, Lynnete and John, because John has a temper and quick temper. That's a plus if that's what you want to do. Now, don't make it right, and I think it's wrong, but if you're going to do that, that's how you do it. Exactly how he's doing this. Whether it comes intentionally or not, like I said, this is what happens. You know, people's got on here about his family before, which is fine. And people can have their own opinion about that. I won't even say anybody's name on that end. But his boy acts like one fine, outstanding citizen that don't need people criticizing him either way. The kid needs, well, not a kid, a young man needs his space, and leave him the hell alone. And you know, you need to leave him alone. You can see what happened with him and his dad over the years and what took place. And about people jumping on his bandwagon. They have every right to do that. But let's see some of his criticism. He's going after two ladies and this, well, the lawyer, which he always goes after a lawyer if it's not on his side, I noticed. But putting him aside, the two ladies and a guy that used to hang out with him a little bit. Okay, one admits he's a felon. And the other ones are not, but he insinuates they are. You know, that's not right. That's wrong. Yes, it might get you more views and more money, but it's not the truth. But if people would really go out and look, they can see what's going on here. Overall, not just one little nibbit, the whole picture. Like Guapo, he showed one text that made Guapo look bad if you looked at the text, but when you looked at the contents of the text before and after, it wasn't the same thing Jeremy tried to put out. And some of this I've already said, but I'm just commenting on some of the stuff on the Lynnete and Jeremy deal. That was on there. See, you can let, I know one person, and she wasn't mad or nothing, she said, I disagree with you. Jeremy is a nice guy. That's her opinion, and I'm glad she said that. I don't have to agree with it. If she would have said, well, do you like what Jeremy does? I'd say no. Do you have anything against Jeremy? As a person, I don't. See, as a person, I lived in, I was going to say something different, but I lived in a home that my mom was 100% real Christian. And I'll give you an example of that. We lived out on a ranch. Or a couple of them, different places at different times, within several miles of each other. Okay, we lived out in the middle of nowhere. And anybody that don't agree with that, and we went about 50 miles to junior high and high school, because the bus at that time would go in and out right to the houses. If you don't believe that, look up the city of Arco, Idaho. It was the first city to be lit by atomic energy in the world. Then from there, you got a little town out towards where I was at called Hals, which was mostly dogs and cats, I think, not very many people. Then I lived farther up from there. So yeah, that's one hell of a bus ride one way. But my views of my mom come from how we were raised. Yes, she had 10 kids. She's a little over 5 foot tall and a redhead. True story. This is not making nothing up. But we lived in a Christian environment in her eyes. Now, what I mean by that, we were in a Christian environment. But she lived it. Okay, she never forced none of her kids to believe what she did. She never forced any of us to do religiously what she was doing. She always hoped, and a couple of them have, and that's a good thing. She has hoped they would follow her. And like I said, a couple of them have. All of us have to a point, okay? None of us has ever, because of the way we live, none of us has ever been in prison. None. A couple of my brothers been a day or two in jail, but that's it. I've never been arrested. I've never been in local jail, and I've never been to prison. That's because of how I was raised. And a certain person probably would criticize how I was raised because the money wasn't always there. We always had food. We always enjoyed ourselves. And I'm happy. If I had it all over to do again, I'd do the exact same thing again of where I was raised. After high school, well, I'd probably do a few things different at that point. But being raised, I wouldn't have changed nothing. And back to Mom being a Christian, she really was. She seldom ever put on a pair of pants. True story. She hardly ever heard her cuss. She was anti-caffeine. My dad drank coffee all day long, but she would not put caffeine in her body. There's always here and there you'll pick up something that has caffeine in it. She'd do that because it was there, but very, very seldom did that ever hit her body. She never smoked. She never drank. And she lived her life way she did because of her Christian belief. And all of us to this day, at least to a point, follow that. So when I see a certain person out there saying he's a Christian and all this, and you see the way he does it, It's offensive because it is not a true Christian's way. I have no qualms him saying he's a Christian. All the more power to him. But in my eyes, when you see that and how he does things, just wasn't the way we was raised. And that went back to some of the comments I've gotten to, so. But, you know what? She lived to 93 years old, and she died of B-cell cancer at 93. Wasn't her age that got her. You know, and all of us have had, we all consider ourselves Christian in our family. And even though I don't go to church, I don't go to any organized religion, we know how to be a Christian. Our faith is in God. You don't have to believe in God. Even if you don't believe in God, you still have faith to something. When you have that faith, and it's the right faith, and I'm not talking in the sense of a religious aspects, but when you have that faith, you will see wrong. And that's what I was getting about. Some of the things he does is like, and like I said before, I'm not calling this guy anything but a Christian, because that's what he says he is. I don't have to agree with it, but that's what he says it is. But I'm getting to the point that, yes, to me, the things he does, and I'm not saying he's anti-Christian, which he's, like I said earlier, he's not. But he's acts just like I was raised a false prophet would be. No, I'm not calling him a false prophet. His actions lean towards that. If he gets offended by it, he gets offended by it. And some of the stuff he's doing there can be construed in other states as harassment, cyber stalking, and if he was here where I am, he would be getting looked into at least on that. You would not get away with that. And chances are, because they have in this state prosecuted people for cyber stalking on the state level. I don't know how the federal would work on it. But I'm just wanting to get on here and give some of my opinions and some things that were said in my Lynnete and Jeremy's feed I put out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I mean, you could hate me for it or whatever, but it was my opinions. Now, I've said this before. I've never been to Florida. I do have a sister that lives in Hastings, Florida, but I've never been there. I don't know either one of these people, and that's another reason why I said this will be decided in the courts. I'm going off of what is out there, what people have proven. And sometimes you go off of people's wishful thinking too, like a couple of guys that have done on my stream on that, is wishful thinking of what went on without looking. Being lazy and not looking at what the facts are out there. They're willing to go off of one guy's opinion and not look at the facts. A good example of that, this one guy today, about, I made a comment to him that he was like a sheep. And this really happens with sheep because I grew up around them. If you have a band of sheep, when you're working them, you shear them and all that, I never shirred them, but I've pushed them in and get in the sack and push down the wool. Never picked up a pair of clippers to shear the sheep though. But after they're sheared, you pick 3 or 4, depending on how many the boss wanted, have bells on them to be the leaders. And this is a fact. When you put that bell on that sheep, if that sheep goes up in the mountains, we used to have them by the mountains, and jumps off a cliff or run off a cliff, others will follow that because no rhyme or reason, they'll go off the cliff with it. You know, and some minions are like that. You put a bell on the leader, he jumps off, and the others will follow with no rhyme or reason. Look at all them people that drank all that Kool-Aid. Jim Jones, the people that followed him, they were willing to go off the cliff for him with not a clue to why. Hell Bobbett, the people in charge of that, these people were willing to go off the cliff with them with wrong results. So I'm trying to get it. Go out. Look what's out there. Look at certain things out there. Look at the person's track record. Whether you like them or not. I mean, you got to learn that there's more than one opinion out there, which means you got to do some research to find out. And there's some good people on here doing the research. I appreciate y'all, and thanks for